Welcome everybody to Service Drive Revolution. I hope you're having a great day. Today, I want to talk about something that is very, very frustrating to me, and it's happened to me twice. But first of all, say hello to my trusty sidekick here, Mario.
Hey everybody, happy to be here.
Pernillo. 2 times. So it just happened with a BMW person that said, we're number one in the country by a mile. We're not going to do incentives to try to beat Mercedes like we have in years past. What do you think about that statement?
I just think they're looking for excuses of why not to be number one.
No, they said they are number one.
In every category?
They're saying that we're the number one luxury car in America.
I'm a little stumped over that one.
Me too. I said, so what about Tesla? And they said, oh, Tesla doesn't count. And I was like, wait, the people buying a Tesla would have bought another car if they weren't buying a Tesla. 100%. But how does Tesla not count?
Interesting. It has 4 wheels.
Same thing. Moves. 4 or 5 years ago now, I can't even remember because I put it out of my mind. The last time I will ever speak at NADA, they, when you speak there, they make you do your whatever you're going to do for a committee beforehand, and they critique it. And they said 2 things. They said, we want you to take out calling your ex-wife Satan.
That's the best part.
In the Pet the Dog story. And we don't want you to talk about Tesla. Because I had the story about my doctor and Tesla. And I was like, well, why don't you want me to talk about Tesla? And they're like, well, it's not a popular subject with the dealers. And I'm like, well, my job is to talk about the truth. And it's the elephant in the room. Right. No, it's just not a popular subject. We don't want you to talk about it.
So now they're controlling your speech.
Not only that, they're just like, I don't understand why nobody wants to talk about Tesla. Like the thing that you have to understand is Tesla has a huge unfair advantage over everybody, and they are every year they're getting a mile ahead. Like they're so far ahead right now, nobody understands. Elon Musk said in an interview not that long ago, he says, I'm so far ahead and nobody even understands how far ahead I am. So I want to talk about that today. I want you to understand why Tesla has an unfair advantage to everybody else. And I want to talk about it. You know, the thing that's always odd to me, like people say, you shouldn't talk about religion or politics. And I'm like, I love to talk about religion and politics. I'm like, you know why? Because you could change my mind.
Right.
The people that are just blindly following something, like they believe everything on Fox News is the truth,
right,
and they're blindly following that, you probably shouldn't talk politics with them.
Right.
But if they're normal people and you're trying to have a conversation about facts and a little bit of a debate, and hopefully in a conversation you learn something, right? You could change my mind. I'm not so stuck on anything that you couldn't change my mind. So I'm an odd duck that way. Like I always think it's funny when people believe things that, they hear on TV or they read somewhere and they've never double checked it. They never have, anything but, like, for example, my mom, when Obama was president, used to watch the 700 Club all the time on Fox News too. And so she tells me, I don't know, all this stuff about how Obama and Muslims are going to take over or something, and that Obama never wears the American flag on his suit like other presidents.
Right.
And so when she said that to me, and Pat Robertson on the 700 Club, that guy literally should be persecuted for some of the crazy things that he says about people. Like, it's nuts. But I Googled it, and it's like there's tons of pictures of him, and he was a secret Muslim. And once again, I'm not debating whether he's a good president or not, but let's not make stuff up.
Right.
Like,
And
it
people
goes
quick
both
to
ways.
believe it and they run off with
Yeah,
that,
and then they're
right?
like, he's a Muslim, and he's gonna let them all, let the Muslims take over, and all this weird stuff, and it's all fake, fake news, but would easily just Google and you can figure out
Right.
what's really going on,
Yep.
It's crazy. So, in the Tesla conversation, I like to have this conversation. Some of you dealers listening to this or watching this are going to be irritated by it, and I would tell you, you shouldn't be. It's the truth. And the sooner we get hip to it and the sooner we start accepting the truth, the quicker we're going to recover and get ahead of it. But
Right.
let's not pretend we're Blockbuster Video and we're just going to crawl in a hole.
We're still in denial.
Yeah,
We're still in denial.
it's
and that's the
nuts.
sad part.
And so the funny thing is I've been predicting the Tesla thing for a long time. And the thing that I would tell people is what you're not taking into consideration is new car sales are going to drop. And everybody agreed with that and they knew. And then I've said, and you don't understand that Tesla and these other companies are going to come in and get part of the market share of the numbers that have dropped.
Yeah.
And so it's not like they're selling cars in addition to what we were normally selling.
Right.
The new car sales are dropping and Tesla's gaining market share inside of that smaller pool.
Right. It's a loss for them if we really consider it, right?
But nobody kind of like looks at it that way. It's weird. So we're going to talk about Tesla's unfair advantage and some really great questions. So let's start with the questions and then we'll get to Tesla's unfair advantage. Let me put on my glasses. I can't see anymore.
Good looking glasses.
Hey, by the way, you know who I had dinner with the other night?
Who's that?
G-Man.
G-Man, how's he doing?
So I asked him, he said, he said something funny.
Shout outs to G-Man.
He went into someplace and the guy was like, yeah, but how's your cholesterol? Like people say that to him all the time. And so I was like, yeah, well, how is your cholesterol? And it ends up that they finally put him on medication. So his cholesterol is 150 now, no matter. He could inject milkshakes into his arm. And so, I mean, there's two parts to that, right? One is, I guess it's healthier in a way, but you're
you're cheating in a sense, isn't it?
well, you're trying to use medicine to
offset the body telling you it's
offset
not
the
healthy.
idea that you should just eat better, I guess. But it is like he wasn't going to change the way he eats.
You know,
right?
I know this is off subject, but when we were talking about, when I was doing research and eating and everything, one of the things they said is condiments. A lot of us don't consider how much condiment we use for our meals. And they said
so condiments
ketchup,
like mustard,
ketchup,
Gary
is his
puts
kryptonite,
ketchup
right?
on everything.
Has a lot of sugar, and we overuse a lot of condiments, and that might be, one of the reasons his cholesterol.
What does it say about hot sauce?
I don't think hot sauce was a big major.
No, because it's hot sauce.
Yeah, and how much do
vinegar.
you really put on there, right? So I don't think it was big
Well, if
as
you're
like
Mexican like
ketchup,
me, you put on a
mayonnaise,
lot.
and all that. Yeah, but I don't think it was as effective to the other condiments we use.
So that's it, G-Man. If you
Quit
just
the
would have
ketchup,
cut
man.
out the ketchup and the carne asada fries.
Yeah, that definitely helps, but it's so good.
Linda Lillard, and I'm guessing she's from Texas because her email is something Texas. I'm new to your YouTube channel and service advising, but using your channel to learn as much as possible in conjunction with my training I'm going through at the dealership. My main concern and what I seem to not be able to find within all of your videos is the most common mechanical issues or problems that most come up for service advisors. Example, a guy came in the other day with severe tire wear on two front tires. It was an all-wheel drive Subaru, which I would have no clue that if you had an all-wheel drive, you should always replace all four at the same time. She means all four tires at the same time. I know there's an infinite number of answers to this, but as a novice service advisor with zero mechanical experience, what are some of the most general basic questions you get most often and answer so much? So, Lindy, it's a great question. And I understand the spirit behind the question, but it's the wrong question. Because what you want to understand is your role as a service advisor is not to diagnose anything. It's not. You don't need to diagnose tire rotations in the end. What your role is to make friends with the customer, make the customer really comfortable so the customer can explain their concerns with the car. You can document that and then let the technician do the work. You got to think of yourself this way. The technician's the doctor and you're the nurse receptionist. Your job is not to diagnose anything. Your job is to make them feel comfortable, to get them to fill out the paperwork, get all the information, and tee up the doctor for success, right? So the only variable in this maybe would be that you could recommend maintenance when maintenance is due and understand that, but you do not need to know anything about the car as much as you need to be really, really good with connecting with people. Spend your time connecting with customers on a deeper level. Spend your time making friends. The car is a commodity. Anybody can service a Subaru. In fact, I don't know if you know this stat, but 70% of clients end up going to independent shops after their warranty is up. So you're losing more customers because we think the car is special. Right. When it's not. It's a commodity. The car is an excuse to make friends with the customer. So Subaru customers, and I know this because I was a Subaru service advisor, are the most interesting characters out there as far as car brands go. They're outdoors, they're mountain biking, they're freaks, they're crazy, and focus on that. Focus on making friends with them, getting to know them, asking 4 or 5 questions. Where are you going today? What do you do? Where do you drive your Subaru? What your kids, your dogs, your hobbies.
Emotional
Work.
connections.
Yep, emotional connection. And don't worry about diagnosing the car. The reason why in service advisor training all that isn't in there is because you said it. There's a million different things or variables that could happen. Right. And your job is to be a customer collector, connect, and then make the process easier. Right. Back in the early days of our industry, customers pulled right in the shop and talked directly to the technician. That ended up being a distraction because the technicians were doing all kinds of other things and not actually just working on cars. Your job is to make it like you're the communication between, but you make the follow-up better. You make the customers comfortable. You get them talking and opening up. Think about if I get you opening up about your personal life and then I ask you about a rattle. I'm going to get a much better description than if you're nervous and it's all a transaction and I'm running you in and out like a number, right? So go on test drives, confirm what the customer is saying, really, really put your hands on it, but you don't need to know how to fix it. You don't need to know how to diagnose anything. Let the technicians do that. And over time, you're going to learn because you're going to see certain things over and over again. But, I mean, I remember when I was a service advisor, because I was making so much money and doing so well, one of the Volkswagen technicians, his name was Shane. He was a prick, that kid. And I remember one day, bro, he was doing a recall on a Jetta, and he didn't disconnect the battery, and he blew the airbag. Right. And I thought it was the greatest thing. He broke the windshield on the car because he didn't do the job right.
Yeah.
Because he was such a jerk. But anyways, he calls me out, and all the Volkswagen techs, and I don't know, there were like 12 of them. He's got this like wood box, this like wood crate, and there's like a disc on it. And he calls everybody around, all the techs who are around, and he's like, and I didn't know what I was being set up for. He's like, so what is that? And I was like, I think I said a brake rotor. He goes, oh my God, you can't be a service advisor. You don't know the difference between a brake rotor and a clutch disc. And he goes to my boss and says, he can't write service. He does. And my boss is like, his job's not to know the difference. That's your job. Right. His job is to make friends. The reason why he sells so much is because people trust him and like him. It has nothing to do with that. And I don't know, whenever I had a technician recommend something, whatever, I'd just go out and I'd say, could you explain it to me? Could you show me? So I would understand, and that's how I learned. So just, Lindy, make friends with customers, get them to trust you, be an investigative reporter and get all the information, but you don't need to know all that. Don't diagnose cars. One last thing with that is sometimes the worst advisors are advisors that used to be techs.
Yeah, I see that
because
quite a bit.
they know everything. They can diagnose. We never make any money because they'll just diagnose it in the drive, but they didn't spend really time diagnosing, so a third of the time they're wrong.
Right. And then they discredit the work that the technicians do in the back, and they want discounts. It can go wrong in so many ways.
So, good question though. We will email you and get your info, and we will send you some swag.
Swag bag.
And I would suggest reading the Millionaire Service Advisor, because it'll help you with some of that. There's some good stories and analogies in there for you on how to be a service advisor. Next question is from Wants to Be Kept Anon.
Okay.
Which I'm guessing
Anonymous?
Anon is anonymous. Hey Chris, I've been listening to your podcast for some time now, and on my second time through all of them, I came across the podcast talking about advisor pay plans, December 5th, 2017. That was a long time ago.
Yep.
Recently, my store, Subaru, one of the busiest in the group, has adjusted all the advisor pay plans. Originally, we were getting paid off of parts and labor and were based off of gross profit tiers, 7 to 8.5%. See, already I'm lost. Are you paid off of sales or gross? How would you read that?
I'm going to assume he's getting paid off of gross, but it was a little confusing.
As a department, we are making an average of $225 to $250K per month out of 4 advisors. Now, is that parts and labor? 4 advisors, and each individual was making $6 to $8K monthly. Everything was smooth and profits were growing. Now, they have adjusted our pay plan to get paid strictly off of Net Promoter Score, which is CSI, right?
Yep.
Basing a stranger's opinion on a survey as to what we get paid percentage-wise. The percentages are still the same, but the question that is asked on the surveys are based off of our experience. Would you recommend blank? 10 out of 10 to family and friends. A score from either 0 to 8 or 9 to 10 is a 10. Seeing as we are still grossing the exact same, but a lot of advisors have seen a $1,500 cut out of their pay due to this pay plan. Seeing as to what your thoughts are, I feel this is an option to where we're still making a profit, but they possibly don't have to pay us as much to help boost their profits as a manager group. It makes us advisors not want to sell as much and focus more on customer retention and making sure they are completely satisfied. In the end, we have to always take care of customers. For a question to a random stranger to based on pay to fill, it's not fair. And that's what it says.
Wow.
So a little trouble with the English language.
And I'm
there.
with that too. You read some of my writing, and it comes back to that.
So is this you? Are you anonymous?
No. The one thing that stuck out so much to me, which is definitely if you look at it through a different lens, is they're assuming the customer's a complete stranger because they're leaving him as a complete stranger.
That's your fault
this
if
is
the
a
customer
layup.
is a stranger.
It is a layup.
Yeah.
You're going to give me more money if I can connect with customers, and the amount of money is dictated by how much you can sell. Think about that. Make a friend out there. Get that customer to know you on a deeper emotional level and vice versa, because in return, you get the better CSI, the customer trusts you, you sell more, and you have the highest tier out there. This is a layup, guys. We just have to slow down the process and make friends. That's simple. It's a layup.
Well said. Okay, and then now let's go outside of our little selfish shell as an advisor, like, you know that saying, to the man with the hammer, the world is a nail.
Yeah.
So to an advisor, the world is just everything that we do as an advisor. But step back for a second. And why is CSI so important to a Subaru dealer?
It dictates how we're taking care of our customers.
Yeah, but what else? What do the manufacturers do?
Pay a lot of good money for that.
So there's bonuses involved. What else? Do manufacturers want to give more points to dealers that can't get CSI or that can?
Can't.
So if a group wants to buy more Subaru dealerships or any other dealerships for that point, it's kind of like their credit score with the manufacturer. So there's tons of money involved, right? And then you're not allowed to buy other dealerships if you don't have good CSI.
Right.
And kind of the third one is that they sometimes don't give you cars. So you're a dealership, you want the good cars, like, I don't know what the good car is with Subaru right now, but you want a bunch of turbo Imprezas or whatever they're selling that's the hot car.
Right.
You're not going to get a bunch of those if you don't have that relationship with the manufacturer and you're not in good standing with the manufacturer. So we got to step way back from just being an advisor and being so selfish.
Right.
And we got to understand that it's a big deal. It's a big deal to the dealership, and that's what keeps us employed, that these strangers' opinion is that they like us. And let's just talk about the things as an advisor we can control. So can we control how we answer the phone?
Yes.
Can we answer the phone with a good attitude or a bad attitude? Can we be in a hurry or take our time? Can we show empathy or not care? We can.
Yeah.
When a customer comes in, can we let the customer wander around and wonder where to go and who's going to help them? Or can we run out to a car and welcome, how are you doing today? And connect with them and ask them about their kids and their work or whatever it is that matters and really genuinely make friends with the customer. Do we control that as
100%,
advisors?
yep.
We do. Now, as advisors, can we follow up with customers beyond what they expect? Could we call them before they call us?
Yeah,
Do we
100%.
control that or somebody else?
Well, where I work at is what they're going to start with, but
The
100%,
phones don't work?
100% you can control it.
Okay, so if we have a working phone, we can follow up. We could email, text, whatever. We could follow up with customers and exceed their expectations, right? Could we be better than any other advisor that's ever helped them? Could we greet them, follow up, check history, care about them? Could we treat them? Now I know this is crazy. It's crazy. I've been accused of being crazy before. Could we treat them like family?
Yes.
So we control that. We're not victims. And so if we did all that stuff and they showed up to pick up the car and we were there and we made them feel great and we said, hey, please come back and see me. Like the thing I used to do is like, here's my card. And please, if anything happens or you need anything, I want to be your guy in the car business. Please call me for anything.
Right.
And people would call me because I was sincere and I really did want to be their car guy. People would call me and say, hey, Chris, I'm thinking about buying a new car. What do you think about the new Legacy or whatever it is? And I had a lot of influence on what cars they bought. And I would tell them the truth. I would say like, hey, there's a lot of issues with that one, but this
Right.
one is the good one. And so it's all in, we're not victims here. Our role as advisors is to do that. And so really the question here, anonymous, is how much of a pro are you? How much do you care about being great at what you do? How much do you care about the dealership you work for? Or are you just selfish and it's all about you? Because it's really, really odd to me that you would describe a customer as a complete stranger. It's in your control that they would be a really close friend.
Right.
I mean, I was always friends with my clients.
Yeah.
Like I always thought that they were just like me. They had problems just like me, and I don't know. It's a weird. Your angle on all this is very self-serving, but very lonely. Like you're gonna put yourself in a trap. You can have the best CSI in the country if you wanted to by just connecting with customers. So it's important to the dealership, and it's a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean, as part of it, they can get from our online training on a couple steps in a system that we've not only saved hundreds of, I wouldn't even say hundreds, but thousands of advisors that I personally know saved their jobs because they were on the brink of getting fired by having great sales but poor CSI. And by them just following the steps that we have, they managed to keep their job and really have a very great CSI score from here on out.
They have to go hand in hand.
Yep.
You can't have high sales without happy customers. Then you're pushing people too far. You're doing things that you shouldn't do. If a customer doesn't feel value at the end of the day and feels taken advantage of, it's too much chaos. The relationship is too valuable with the customer to do that. So they go hand in hand.
Oh yeah.
To me.
I agree.
Tesla's unfair advantage, Mario.
What's that? I don't believe it.
You don't?
No.
Okay, let me tell you about it then. I'm glad you don't believe it. The first thing that Tesla did that was an unfair advantage is they went direct to consumer. So in North America, in most states, you had to sell through a dealer, right? A franchise dealer, except for one state, New York. I know in Manhattan, a lot of the dealerships are owned by the manufacturer because they just can't afford
Overhead and all that.
Yeah, the overhead. But for the most part, all the other states, I think there's one other one where you could, but you had to have a franchise dealer in order to sell cars. So what happens when Tesla can sell direct to consumer and bypass dealers? Think about it for a second. One is that margin that would go to dealers goes to them.
Keep more of the net.
Yeah.
More of the profits.
And so the other thing is they don't have the overhead of flooring either.
Right.
So you think about dealerships, they have all this overhead, they have rent, but one thing, and if you've watched the videos on chriscollinsinc.com explaining why fixed absorption is a house of cards, and I explain flooring in one of those videos and what it means. So if you don't understand it, go there to the website and opt in and watch that video. But flooring is a line of credit for wholesale cars that the dealerships pay, and it's expensive. Tesla is taking an order and delivering to a car, and there's really no flooring as we would traditionally understand it, right? So there's no that extra overhead isn't there. They also don't. Their employees aren't union.
Oh, really?
No. So in the factory, they've talked about going union, but as far as I know, they're not union whatsoever. So the next thing is software. So right now on a Tesla car, you can go into a menu in the car and buy different things. So you can buy extra performance for $2,000. Like they have an app store in there where and then you never have to go to a dealership to get it done. It pushes right from a satellite into the car. So most of the other manufacturers, the information pushes to a satellite and they can call you and tell you you're due for service, but they literally push the programming down into the car and avoid service altogether.
From the comfort of your own driveway.
Any updates, whatever it is, they just push them to the car.
I'm seeing that advantage, Chris. I'm seeing the advantage.
The other thing is their culture. So I'm going to go through a few of these, and they're not in any certain order, but their culture. So one thing that I was thinking about is Steve and I were talking about the service manager that used to work for him that now is a service manager at Tesla. And he was saying that every 2 weeks Tesla sends out a new memo and they change where they're going constantly. So whatever the directive was 2 weeks ago is different this week. Like they're always changing. And we were talking about, we're like, well, if that happened to employees at a dealership, they would go crazy.
Right.
But you know why people at Tesla don't go crazy is because they're cutting edge and their culture has changed. They're driving change in the industry, so the employees are a part of this culture where change is expected.
It's part of the culture, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So think about the difference in culture between employees at dealerships and Tesla. They feel like they're doing something cutting edge and special.
Right.
Employees at dealerships feel like, oh, it's constantly changing. We're always getting screwed.
Right.
And, that won't last. Right?
Yeah.
And so the cultures are completely different. So they get away with more.
That's interesting.
The semis. So they're coming out with the semis and the pickup truck. And their semis, when you think about what it's going to do to that industry, their cost per mile on those is going to be insane. And so when they start making those, same thing, it's direct to consumer, no manufacturer. Those margins are going to be completely theirs, and they're going to have a huge impact on that, but the revenue from that is going to be crazy. So now understand the climate of electric cars. The reason why all the manufacturers are going to electric is because China is mandated by 2026 no combustion engine cars can be sold there. And it kind of counts down year over year. But the manufacturers are trying to get ahead of that, right? Nobody has the batteries and the infrastructure to make batteries and the technology as Tesla. Tesla has the best batteries. Right. And they have batteries coming that are supposed to blow these away when everybody's just trying to get to where they're at.
Trying to catch up.
So everybody's trying to catch up to where they are now, but the stuff they have coming blows away what they have now. So they're so far ahead in their battery technology that I don't know how anybody would catch up. Like, and part of the thing with electric cars is the hardest part of making them is producing the batteries. And he's got that in Nevada here, and then his plant in China, I believe, is going to be fed by a plant in Germany making batteries there. So, and then that's the next thing. He's got a plant in China, and his cost to produce in China is way lower than it is here, but he's selling them for more money over there than he is here. So his margins in China are pretty thick. And then if he runs into competition, he's got room to come down on his margins to be super competitive. But as it sits right now, his margins in China are going to be huge because he can make them for less there, and he's selling them for more there. So he's so far ahead of everybody else with that it's speculated that what's going to happen is he's going to end up providing batteries for the other manufacturers. Mm-hmm. When everybody else kind of cries uncle, he's going to open the door and say, hey, I'll sell you the technology and I'll sell you the batteries. Because it might come to the point where everybody's trying to catch up and they can't, and he's so far ahead that if he makes another jump,
afford it, right?
Well, it would be the smart thing for some of the other manufacturers, like we were talking about Chrysler and Peugeot and even BMW to that, might be better joining him instead of fighting him.
Right.
And using his technology.
You know, it's funny, like the saying goes, you keep your friends close and your enemies closer. But I don't think anybody's looking at Tesla as an enemy. They just can't see through that. He's just
quietly like, okay, so here's the other thing that fascinates me, and I think one of the biggest assets that nobody thinks about, right? So the Rembrandt in the attic. Do you know what that means?
No.
Okay, the Rembrandt in the attic is if you went to buy a house in Pasadena, right? And let's say this house is on the market for $2 million. And you're in the house and you're looking around and you're like, oh, I want to go up and I want to see the attic. So you go up in the attic by yourself, and all of a sudden you see that over in the corner, all dusty, is a Rembrandt that's been there forever, right? So now, what does the house value go to if there's a Rembrandt in the attic that nobody knows about?
Depends on who's willing to pay what for it.
Let's say the Rembrandt's worth $30 million.
Okay.
What's the house worth now?
In my eyes, I'm going to say the same price because I want that, right? But I think if we're going to value the house with that, we're looking at $3,500, right? $30,500,000. Or you said $2 million, so $32 million.
Yeah, but it's worth a lot.
Yeah.
We would agree, right?
Yeah.
So you come back and somebody says, well, I'll pay $2.2 million. And then you go, well, I'll pay 2.4. And you end up buying the house for 2.5, and you have this Rembrandt in the attic. So now you made a great deal, right? So a lot of us in our businesses have a Rembrandt in the attic. For example, dealerships a lot of times don't understand that often their biggest asset is their database, but they don't know how to mine it or work it or understand it, or they don't have a good relationship with it.
Right.
So, but in a lot of businesses that I've gone into over the years, there's always a Rembrandt in the attic somewhere that nobody sees, and it takes a fresh set of eyes like us to come in and kind of point that out. But the Rembrandt in the attic, I think, for Tesla, and purely my personal opinion, is that they've had driverless cars out there on the road collecting data for how many years now? 8 years, something like that?
Yeah, I was going to say 5 to 8.
Yeah. So, well, he was collecting data before they even turned it on. So Google, Apple, everybody out there trying to develop driverless cars is 8 years behind them. They've had cars out there collecting data, location data, behavior data, all of their AI that they have for driverless cars is way ahead of everybody else. And that intellectual property is worth a ton.
Right.
So as we, proceed, he's going to have a huge advantage there too. So when you add all of these things up, we have clients that the manufacturer's like, hey, I want you to spend $10 million on a building. And they're like, well, I'm barely making money now. My new car sales are down, and you're telling me you want me to spend $10 million on a new building? No way. And then the manufacturers, and we've been in on these conversations too, are saying, man, I wish the dealers just weren't in the way.
Right.
I wish that we could just do it and go direct to consumer. And so as the margins and the profitabilities for dealers go down, manufacturers' appetite for going to direct to consumer goes up. And then you don't train your people, and you don't have great customer service and a great relationship with your market or your database. It affects it. So it's a weird thing, and I don't pretend to know where it ends up, but I am always surprised that we are ignoring Tesla. I'm always surprised that we don't want to talk about it, because we can learn some stuff. We're not going to get ahead by ignoring the elephant in the room. It's not doom and gloom. Whenever industries are turned upside down or there's changes, there's other opportunities. And the one thing that there will always be is service, right? I always wonder sometimes about dealers that came up through the industry in sales,
right,
and then all of a sudden sales is going direct to consumer. They're not going to want to own service shops.
No, it's not their passion.
Yeah, it's not their ego is massaged or created through how many cars they sell, right? You ask them on a Monday morning, what'd you do in gross in service, or how many cars did you sell? They're going to tell you how many cars they sold, right?
Instantly. They're trialing us before we ask.
Yeah. And so that's the thing, is service isn't going away. Even on electric cars, you're going to need tires and brake fluid and other things.
Right.
They're going to break, right? But the new car sale is what's changing.
Right.
And so that's what's interesting about our industry. There's going to be opportunity, but it's going to be on the service side and service drive revolution.
Oh yeah. Well, one of the craziest things that I read was that they were saying by 2020 there's going to be 1 million robo-taxis on the road. 1 million robo-taxis on the road, which changes a lot when it comes to Uber, Lyft, and taxi companies, right?
Well, and what that tells you is he who has the technicians wins.
Yeah.
Right? I think in trucking too, because we do a lot of stuff in the trucking industry, is he who has a technician wins. Like a lot of these trucking companies have fleets of techs, and they're not going to be able to afford them. And if we as dealers can afford them, we will have the work, right? Their maintenance work will come to us and all of that. So it's really not ignoring the market, it's seeing the opportunity in the market as it changes, but you can't see that opportunity by turning a blind eye and not wanting to talk about it.
Gotta open your eyes and see what it is.
So great stuff. Thanks, Mario. We appreciate everybody, and remind you that we have the best service drive revolution on demand platform with Service Manager University, advisor training, technician recruiting, which is the future. We're losing 2 technicians for every 1 coming in. The customer service training and technician training in there. It's a complete platform for you to get the results and achieve your freedom in fixed stops, have high fixed absorption to cover the drop in new car sales. It's available at chriscollinsinc.com. And beyond that, we'll watch your cholesterol.
Yeah. No more ketchup, G-Man.
And we'll see you again real soon. Thank you.